In the quiet folds of upstate New York communities, like Cedar Creek, cultivate a fragile peace. They are places where life unfolds, in predictable patterns where futures are sketched with vibrant hope, and where the darkest fears seem distant, almost unimaginable. Sarah Jenkins, with her boundless spirit and a future as bright as the autumn leaves, embodied this very promise. But one ordinary evening, that promise was brutally fractured, ripped away by an unseen force that vanished without a trace. For years, the town wrestled with the gaping void Sarah left behind, haunted by unanswered questions. The investigation that followed proved relentless, yet the truth remained stubbornly buried beneath layers of time and despair. Every lead faded, every clue seemed to mock the efforts, leaving behind only the chilling echo of a life abruptly silenced. Could a tiny overlooked secret left behind in the chaotic aftermath truly hold the key to a justice denied for 2 decades? Cedar Creek, a tapestry of quiet harmony woven into the serene hills of upstate New York, resonated with the slow, deliberate rhythm of life. It was a place where neighborhood doors often stood unlocked, where the hum of community was a constant, comforting presence, and where individual aspirations blossomed under an open sky, untouched by the world's harsher clamor. Within this tranquil landscape lived Sarah Jenkins, 23, a woman whose vibrant spirit radiated warmth. Her laugh, a bright, infectious sound, frequently drifted from the local Cedar Creek bookstore, where she worked part-time, a melody that effortlessly brought smiles to the faces of customers. Sarah possessed an innate optimism and a gentle heart, qualities that naturally drew her to those in need. Her weekends were often spent amidst the bustling animal shelter, her hands offering quiet solace to rescued creatures. Her path forward was illuminated by a clear, unwavering ambition to become a veterinarian, a dream she pursued with diligent study and profound dedication at the nearby state university. To Emily, her younger sister, Sarah was far more than kin. Emily perceived in Sarah not merely a sister, but a living embodiment of kindness and determined ambition, a figure whose every move inspired emulation. Their bond pulsed with an unspoken understanding intricately woven into the fabric of their daily existence, through shared secrets, knowing glances, and the comforting, predictable cadence of their evening phone calls. On a crisp October evening in 1998, as the sky surrendered its daylight to the deepening hues of amber and violet, Sarah stepped from the familiar warmth of the bookstore. Cool air thick with the scent of fallen leaves and distant wood smoke held the quiet promise of an ordinary night. Earlier, a quick, cheerful call to Emily had sealed their evening ritual, ending with a simple, reassuring pledge, "I'll call you once I'm home." It was a promise made countless times before, a small yet vital thread in the predictable tapestry of their lives. But on this night, that thread snapped with an agonizing, silent force. The clock's steady ticking transformed into a tormenting drumbeat in Emily's ears, as minutes stretched into an hour, then 2, each tick hammering home the phone's stubborn silence. Initial concern curdled into a cold, creeping dread. Calls to Sarah's friends yielded nothing but mirrored bewilderment and a shared, escalating panic. As the small hours bled past midnight, pushing into a night of suffocating silence, a primal, gut-wrenching terror Emily had only ever imagined clawed its way into stark reality. Her hand, white-knuckled, gripped the phone receiver, its plastic suddenly an impossibly heavy, cold weight against her ear. When her voice finally emerged, raw and frayed from the depths of her fear. It was a fractured whisper, yet resolute, delivering the shattering report that would irrevocably breach Cedar Creek's tranquility. Sarah Jenkins was missing. The quiet town's unsuspecting innocence had been irrevocably marred by an absence that screamed of profound, unspeakable violation. With the dawn, after Sarah Jenkins vanishing, the frantic apprehension that had held Emily tight spread outward, mobilizing an entire community in a desperate search. The Cedar Creek Police Department, under the direct command of Chief Reynolds, launched a full-scale operation. Uniformed officers, bolstered by a determined contingent of local volunteers, fanned out across the quiet streets of the town. Their systematic sweep extended into the surrounding woods, along the hiking trails that snaked through the autumnal foliage and beside the banks of Cedar Creek itself. Every shed, abandoned structure, and culvert became a site of anxious inspection. Posters bearing Sarah's smiling face, a poignant counterpoint to the growing unease, appeared on every lamppost and storefront window, silent pleas echoing the community's desperate, fading hope. Days bled into a week, each passing hour steadily dimming the initial flicker of optimism. The search efforts intensified, but the chilling silence remained unbroken. Then, on a somber Thursday afternoon, miles from Sarah's home, and far from any well-traveled path, the worst fears were tragically realized. A local hiker, navigating a lesser-known trail deep within the sprawling state forest, abruptly encountered a sight that instantly seized him with horror. Discarded in a remote, overgrown gully, half obscured by dense underbrush, lay Sarah Jenkins' body. The scene that unfolded was one of stark, brutal violence, an unthinkable rupture in Cedar Creek's carefully cultivated peace. A team of forensics experts, their movements precise and grim, worked methodically under the darkening sky, their flashlights cutting through the encroaching shadows. The air grew heavy, not just with the chill of late autumn, but with the palpable, chilling weight of the heinous act that had transpired. Among the first to arrive, his presence radiating a quiet professional authority, was Detective Sergeant Mark Evans. A veteran of the Cedar Creek Police Department, Evans had seen enough darkness in his 2 decades on the force to recognize its indelible mark. His face, typically an unreadable canvas, now bore the deep etching of grim determination. His methodical gaze swept over the devastating tableau before him, taking in every detail of the discarded life. Emotion had no place. Only the cold, hard facts of the scene commanded his focus. Yet beneath his disciplined exterior, a profound sense of injustice began to solidify. The methodical process of securing the area commenced a meticulous choreography of evidence, markers, and precise measurements, each action a testament to the gravity of the discovery. The horrific truth of the murder settled over Cedar Creek like a suffocating shroud, extinguishing the last vestiges of its cherished innocence. The immediate aftermath of Sarah Jenkins' discovery ignited a furious surge of investigative activity, a desperate scramble to find answers in the wake of such unspeakable horror. Crime scene technicians, their faces grim under the stark glare of portable lights, meticulously processed the remote gully. Every fallen leaf, every displaced stone, every disturbed patch of earth underwent intense scrutiny. From this painstaking effort, they recovered a few crucial pieces of evidence: minute trace fibers, faint shoe impressions, hinting at a struggle, and a curious, unstamped envelope found remarkably close to Sarah's body. It was an anomaly, seemingly insignificant, carefully catalogued as potential refuse left by the assailant. The forensic team, utilizing the rudimentary DNA technology of 1998, discerned a faint, barely visible smudge upon the envelope's adhive stamp. This minute detail, however, was deemed too degraded, too infinitesimal for viable analysis, given the profiling capabilities of that era. The nascent science simply lacked the power to extract the secrets held within such a microscopic trace. Police launched an intensive series of interviews systematically canvassing every residence within a 5-mile radius of the crime scene and Sarah's last known movements. Friends, acquaintances, and even distant contacts were relentlessly questioned. A fleeting witness sighting near the bookstore that fatal evening yielded a composite sketch. A man of average build, unremarkable features, his face partially obscured by a shadow. Though widely circulated, the sketch generated only a handful of tips, each thread of inquiry dissolving into nothingness. The trail, once seemingly fresh, grew chillingly cold with alarming speed, every passing day eroding the hope of a swift breakthrough. Detective Sergeant Mark Evans felt the immense, suffocating weight of the case settle deeper upon his shoulders. He relentlessly reviewed witness statements, pored over sparse forensic reports, and re-examined the meager evidence logged countless times, his jaw perpetually tight, a muscle clenching just beneath his ear. The case file, once brimming with initial urgency, began to accumulate dust, its growing thickness a stark testament to a crime left unanswered. Every investigative path seemed to dead-end, every promising lead unraveling into frustration. The horrifying reality began to set in. Sarah Jenkins' murder was inexorably descending into the dreaded abyss of the unsolved. For Evans, it was more than a professional setback. It was a profound, deeply personal failing. Who had taken Sarah's life, and would they ever truly be brought to justice? The small, indistinct smudge on that discarded stamp, a silent, microscopic witness to a brutal act, contained a truth too profound for its time, a secret that would remain dormant for decades. The years that followed Sarah Jenkins' murder brought no solace. They simply accumulated, each one adding a heavier layer to the town's collective sorrow. A decade passed, then too, cementing Sarah's case as Cedar Creek's most enduring cold case, a persistent, gnawing ache in the community's shared memory. It became the somber benchmark, a stark, indelible reminder of an unresolved brutality that haunted the very edges of their seemingly peaceful existence. For Emily Jenkins and her family, the relentless march of time offered no healing balm, only a deepening, insidious sorrow. The initial raw explosion of grief had long since transmuted into a quiet, profound ache, a constant low hum beneath the surface of their daily lives. Holidays, once vibrant celebrations, became poignant anniversaries that magnified their loss. Each empty chair at the dinner table, a stark reminder of the laughter now silenced. Birthdays meant for joy were instead marked by a bittersweet remembrance of unfulfilled dreams. Emily, in particular, felt the crushing weight of the unknown. Her sister's killer walked free, a phantom in their midst, and this profound injustice ignited a quiet, tenacious resolve deep within her. She channeled her agony into action, dedicating herself fiercely to keeping Sarah's memory vibrantly alive. Each year, she meticulously organized memorial events, small, heartfelt gatherings that ensured Sarah's bright spirit would not be swept away by the shifting currents of time. Her voice, though often weary from the emotional toll, still carried the resonant weight of an unresolved tragedy, her eyes reflecting a stubborn, unyielding hope that justice might one day pierce the decades of agonizing silence. Meanwhile, Detective Sergeant Mark Evans, though officially burdened by the demanding caseload of active investigations, never truly released his quiet grip on Sarah's file. It resided in a dedicated drawer in his office, not hidden but implicitly reserved its thinness, a constant, silent reproach. Periodically late at night or on quiet weekends, he would retrieve it, meticulously spreading the stagnant evidence across his desk. He'd review the exhaustive, yet ultimately fruitless interviews, gaze at the grainy composite sketch, and run a finger over the cryptic entry for the discarded unstamped envelope with its faint, frustrating smudge, a detail that still pricked at the edges of his mind. He clung to a quiet, unyielding hope that somewhere in the relentless advance of scientific progress, a new technology would emerge, a path forward that could finally illuminate the darkness and bring closure to a family trapped in a timeless, pervasive grief. The case had not seen active investigation in years yet. For Evans, it remained an open wound, a constant reminder of the profound, enduring nature of unsolved injustice. As the new millennium dawned, it heralded a seismic shift within the meticulous world of forensic science. For decades, the inherent limitations of DNA analysis had left countless cold cases trapped in archived files, victim stories tragically silenced, their perpetrators moving freely through society. But now, the breakthroughs were not merely incremental, they were paradigm-altering. The most profound among these was the advent of forensic genetic genealogy, a groundbreaking methodology poised to utterly redefine the pursuit of justice in unsolved crimes. This innovative technique transcended traditional DNA comparisons, which mandated a direct known sample for a match. Instead, forensic genetic genealogy empowered scientists to process minute, even severely degraded genetic material. These amplified profiles could then be uploaded to public genealogical databases, vast digital repositories populated by millions who had voluntarily submitted their DNA for ancestral exploration. The foundational premise was elegantly simple, yet profoundly impactful. By identifying distant relatives of an unknown perpetrator through shared DNA segments, investigators could painstakingly reconstruct complex family lineages. Working backward through generations of birth records, obituaries, and public profiles, skilled genealogists could systematically narrow the expansive pool of potential suspects, ultimately narrowing the focus to individuals whose genetic profiles and historical locations aligned with the specifics of the crime. It was a painstaking, often arduous process, yet it offered a tangible path to hope where previously none had existed. At the forefront of this burgeoning field stood Dr. Aris Thorne, a brilliant, quietly driven forensic scientist at the State Crime Lab. Thorne possessed an unrivaled acumen for discerning the faint biological echoes left at a crime scene. While outwardly reserved, his conviction was a quiet internal hum that the most minute biological residues, once dismissed as unreadable, held profound secrets, waiting patiently for the scientific tools to reveal them. He viewed genetic code not merely as abstract data, but as a silent patient witness, its full story yearning to be heard. Dr. Thorne was more than an analytical mind. He was a visionary, unwavering in his belief that with sufficient precision and persistence, the smallest forgotten clue could finally speak volumes, paving the way for crucial breakthroughs in cases long thought utterly unsolvable. The scientific frontier, long obscured by limitations, suddenly burst open, revealing new, compelling possibilities for justice. Quiet, yet potent directive began to ripple through the national law enforcement community, a concerted push to re-examine cold cases, leveraging the astonishing advancements in DNA technology. This directive, a beacon of renewed hope for families of long-lost victims, reached the desks of detectives nationwide. Among them was Detective Sergeant Mark Evans, whose dedication to Sarah Jenkins' unsolved murder had never truly waned. For years, the case file had sat a stark testament to unanswered questions. Now a slim thread of possibility emerged, one he grasped with an ironclad resolve. Contending with bureaucracy and the skepticism that often accompanies decades-old unsolved crimes, Evans began to lobby. His persistence was a quiet, unyielding force, his arguments methodical and data-driven, consistently highlighting the minute yet pivotal piece of evidence that had always haunted him: the unstamped envelope found near Sarah's body with its almost imperceptible smudge. He argued for a fresh examination, not with the limited tools of 1998, but with the revolutionary capabilities of modern forensic science. The state lab, he insisted, needed to revisit that singular overlooked detail. His fervent request eventually landed on the desk of Dr. Eris Thorne. Thorne, with his incisive intellect and groundbreaking spirit, recognized the singular challenge posed by such an aged, severely degraded sample. The seeming impossibility of success by conventional methods only sharpened his scientific rigor. He accepted the monumental task, understanding that if any hidden truth resided within that faint mark, it would demand an unprecedented level of precision and the most cutting-edge techniques available. What followed was a meticulous, almost surgical endeavor. Inside the sterile confines of the state lab, Thorne, with the steady, precise hands of a seasoned artisan, began the painstaking process. He employed advanced amplification techniques, extending the very limits of what was deemed feasible for such a minute, time-worn sample. Each step was a delicate synergy of scientific protocol and sheer tenacity, counteracting the relentless degradation wrought by 2 decades of exposure. Days turned into weeks of tireless work, the process demanding absolute, unyielding focus. Then, a profound breakthrough. From the nearly invisible saliva residue on that unremarkable stamp, Dr. Thorne managed to extract a microscopic yet unequivocally viable DNA profile. It was an extraordinary scientific feat, a testament to the relentless march of human ingenuity and the conviction that truth, however faint, could still emerge from the shadows. This convergence marked the narrative's critical turning point. Detective Evans's 2 decades of unwavering perseverance had finally met Dr. Thorne's groundbreaking scientific innovation. A tenuous thread of hope, dormant for so long, had at last been unfurled from the depths of desperation, promising a new chapter for a story long silenced. With the viable DNA profile painstakingly extracted from Sarah Jenkins' stamp, the scientific baton shifted to the realm of digital exploration. The sequence of genetic markers, now a unique forensic signature, was uploaded to a public genealogical database, a vast, intricate web of human connections, each thread a potential pathway to truth. This marked the initiation of the painstaking process of genetic genealogy, an endeavor demanding unparalleled patience and a keen, intuitive eye for human lineage. At the helm of this complex operation was Lena Petrova, a seasoned forensic genealogist working in close collaboration with Dr. Thorne's lab. Petrova possessed a rare blend of scientific understanding, and an almost artistic discernment for tracing ancestral lines. Her task was akin to navigating a sprawling digital wilderness, methodically following faint genetic breadcrumbs to construct the unknown perpetrator's family tree. Initial matches within the database were as anticipated distant. The first returns pointed to a vast, sprawling lineage, revealing countless fourth and fifth cousins, a web far too wide to be immediately actionable. It felt at first like casting a net into an impossibly large ocean. Yet Petrova remained undaunted. With methodical diligence, she began to sift through the data cross-referencing myriad public records, faded census documents, digitized newspaper obituaries, and the public profiles millions had created unwittingly, providing crucial insights into their family's past. Each minute piece of information became a deliberate brushstroke in a colossal unfolding portrait. She meticulously built out branches of family trees identifying common ancestors and tracing their descendants, moving through generations with the unwavering precision of a cartographer mapping uncharted territory. The work was relentless, demanding long, solitary hours, staring at glowing screens, painstakingly piecing together fragments of lives long past. Weeks bled into months as Petrova delved ever deeper into the digital ancestry. The breakthrough arrived with the quiet, almost imperceptible click of a mouse. After countless hours of painstaking research, she identified a closer genetic connection, a second cousin once removed to the unknown DNA donor. This was the critical juncture, a profound narrowing of the vast genetic ocean. From this more proximate match, the family tree began to converge with astonishing speed. Generations peeled back names and dates, solidifying into concrete lines of descent. Finally, through this meticulous reconstruction, a singular, compelling name emerged: Arthur Finch. He was a man utterly unknown to Sarah Jenkins, with no apparent personal connection to her life. Yet historical records and diligent cross-referencing revealed a chilling detail. Arthur Finch had lived just 15 miles from Cedar Creek in 1998, a fact utterly missed in the initial limited investigation 2 decades prior. The meticulous genealogical pursuit, guided by Lena Petrova's unwavering skill, had finally yielded its target. This collaborative effort, marrying the precision of cutting-edge forensic science with the intricate art of genealogy, had now laid out the undeniable path for the next phase of the investigation, identifying and apprehending a man who had walked free for 20 years. The silent witness of the stamp had at last spoken its truth with resonant clarity. With Arthur Finch now identified as the prime suspect, the cold case investigation pivoted, sharply transforming into a focused, calculated pursuit. Detective Sergeant Mark Evans, his methodical approach unwavering, initiated a covert surveillance operation, assembling a small, trusted team. Their objective was to intricately observe Finch, seeking to decipher the man who for 2 decades had remained entirely hidden in plain sight. Initial background checks revealed a ledger of minor offenses from his younger years: petty theft, a few instances of breaking and entering, primarily property crimes. There was nothing in his documented past to suggest any propensity for the brutal violence that had claimed Sarah Jenkins' life. Now in his late 40s, Finch presented as an utterly unremarkable man. He maintained a steady, if uninspiring, job at a regional shipping warehouse, resided in a modest home on the outskirts of a neighboring town, and cultivated a quiet, almost isolated existence. He seemed to dissolve into the background of suburban life, an anonymous figure amongst the daily commute. But the police, seasoned in the deceptive nature of appearances, refused to be swayed by this veneer of normalcy. Evans's team painstakingly gathered corroborating evidence, constructing their case piece by painstaking piece. They unearthed old employment records, discovering that Finch had in fact worked for a landscaping company with contracts active in and around Cedar Creek during 1998. This placed him geographically within striking distance of Sarah's last known whereabouts, a crucial detail utterly missed by the less sophisticated initial investigation, lost in the sheer volume of mundane data. The disparate fragments of the past were now undeniably beginning to coalesce, forming a deeply disturbing pattern. The most critical step remained securing a confirmatory DNA sample directly from Arthur Finch. The surveillance team, masters of discreet observation, patiently awaited their opportunity. It arrived one crisp morning when Finch made a stop at a local gas station convenience store, purchasing a coffee before his shift. He left the disposable paper cup in a public trash receptacle. Within minutes, an officer seamlessly blending in as a casual passerby retrieved the discarded cup. It was a seemingly innocuous item, yet it held the potential to irrevocably seal Finch's fate. Cup, handled with meticulous care, was immediately expedited to Dr. Thorne's lab. The results arrived swiftly, unequivocally confirming the genealogical work. It was a direct, irrefutable match. The DNA from the saliva residue on the unstamped envelope found next to Sarah Jenkins' body belonged to Arthur Finch. The narrative tension, having steadily accumulated, now snapped taut. Arthur Finch was no longer a name on a database, a distant genetic connection. He was a tangible, chilling presence, his ordinary life revealed as a carefully constructed, elaborate facade. The 2-decade-old murder of Sarah Jenkins, once an impenetrable mystery, now had a face. The hunt was over. The time for confrontation had finally arrived. Arthur Finch was ushered into the austere, fluorescent-lit interrogation room of the Cedar Creek Police Department. Detective Sergeant Mark Evans, his posture outwardly relaxed, but his gaze keenly observant, began the interview. His approach was a calculated strategy, initially non-threatening, designed to cultivate a deceptive sense of ease, an illusion of mere conversation. Finch, a man who had meticulously cultivated anonymity for 2 decades, sat across the table. He maintained a calm, almost affable demeanor, his eyes meeting Evans's with an air of cooperative innocence. When the name Sarah Jenkins was introduced, he feigned ignorance, a faint frown creasing his brow. Sarah Jenkins. I don't even remember her. Never saw her, not that I recall. His voice was steady, betraying no tremor, a testament to practiced control. Evans, patient and methodical, allowed Finch to speak, absorbing every carefully chosen word. Finch offered vague alibis for October 1998, nebulous recollections of routine days that dissolved under even mild scrutiny. When confronted with minor inconsistencies, his story would subtly shift small details, changing, revealing a habitual reliance on deflection and misdirection. The detective, however, was undeterred. Slowly, inexorably, he began to apply pressure, introducing fragments of information with surgical precision, watching for the telltale signs of strain. He spoke of geographical proximity of old employment records from that pivotal year, details that Finch initially dismissed as irrelevant or conveniently forgotten. Finch's composed facade, once seemingly impenetrable, began to show the faintest hairline fractures. A fleeting tightening around his eyes, A nervous swallow, a micro shiver of a hand resting on the table, each a tiny concession to the mounting stress. The air in the room grew heavy, charged with a powerful, unspoken truth. The pivotal moment arrived, a culmination of decades of silence and relentless scientific pursuit. Evans, his voice dropping to a quiet, almost intimate intensity, leaned slightly forward. He reached into a folder and with deliberate slowness slid a laminated photograph across the polished surface of the table. It was a macro image, stark and undeniable, the unstamped envelope, and in vivid magnification, the minuscule, almost invisible smudge on its corner, the 20-year-old saliva residue. "Mr. Finch Evans," stated his voice, a low, steady current that seemed to cut through the quiet. "This is an envelope. It was found next to Sarah Jenkins' body in 1998. On this stamp, barely visible to the naked eye, there was a tiny, tiny trace. A trace of DNA. Your DNA." The words hung in the air, each one a crushing, unavoidable weight. Arthur Finch's face, which moments before had held a semblance of calm, collapsed inward, his eyes, formerly placid, now stretched wide pupils, dilating with a raw, dawning terror. A guttural sound, something between a strangled gasp and a desperate choke, tore from his throat. His jaw sagged, then clenched, the muscles working furiously, as if trying to physically restrain an inner scream. His skin visibly paled, then flushed with an angry, blotchy red. The carefully constructed edifice of normalcy, meticulously built and maintained over 2 decades, crumbled into dust. Disbelief battled with a primal animal panic, contorting his features into a grotesque mask of horrifying realization. His breathing became shallow, ragged, his chest heaving with silent, desperate struggle for air. He pushed back from the table, overturning his chair with a violent crash that reverberated through the small room. For a horrifying, prolonged moment, he seemed to writhe, caught in an invisible internal maelstrom. Then the dam burst. Fragmented words, choked and chilling, began to spill from him, the first horrifying pieces of a confession 20 years overdue. He spoke of being there, of a chance, volatile encounter, of a moment, of impulsive, unbridled rage, a chilling, fragmented admission, finally pulled from the depths of his long-held, terrifying secret. The trial of Arthur Finch seized headlines commanding both local and national attention. For 2 decades, Sarah Jenkins' murder had festered as a chilling local legend, an open, unhealing wound in the very fabric of Cedar Creek. Now the community, alongside the enduring Jenkins family, watched with bated breath as the long-awaited legal reckoning finally began to unfold within the hallowed yet often brutal confines of the courtroom. The prosecution's case was meticulously constructed, its formidable foundation built upon the irrefutable bedrock of the DNA evidence extracted from that tiny stamp. Dr. Eris Thorne, precise and authoritative, took the stand, guiding the jury through the complex nuances of the science with calm, accessible clarity. He elucidated in painstaking detail how a microscopic trace of saliva, remarkably preserved for 20 years on an ordinary adhesive, had ultimately yielded a complete, undeniable genetic profile. His testimony was a powerful demonstration of scientific advancement, systematically stripping away any lingering doubt about the origin of the crucial DNA. Following Thorne, Detective Sergeant Mark Evans presented the full, compelling arc of the investigation, from the initial desperate search to the groundbreaking revelation of forensic genetic genealogy, culminating in Finch's chilling, albeit fragmented, confession. This partial admission given under the crushing weight of irrefutable evidence, corroborated the scientific findings, weaving a tight, inescapable narrative of culpability. Then came the moment that hung heavy, almost suffocating in the air, the victim impact statement. Emily Jenkins, her posture rigid, her face a stark testament to 2 decades of unyielding sorrow, approached the stand. Despite a barely perceptible tremor in her hands, her voice, though soft, resonated with an unwavering, formidable strength. Her raw grief, for so long a private torment, was now transformed into a determined public advocacy for her lost sister. She spoke not only of Sarah's vibrant life, her dreams of becoming a veterinarian, and the infectious laughter that had been so cruelly stolen, but also of the profound, consuming agony of 2 decades spent immersed in agonizing uncertainty. Her gaze, unwavering and direct, locked onto Arthur Finch, who sat impassively at the defense table. For 20 years, Emily's voice resonated through the hushed courtroom. A powerful accusation: you walked free, you breathed the same air, you lived a life that was brutally denied to Sarah. Every birthday, every holiday, every quiet moment was a fresh, relentless reminder of the unanswered questions: why her and who. Today, finally, we have those answers. Her words transcended mere testimony. They were a visceral expression of profound, enduring loss and an undeniable indictment. Finch's defense team, facing the overwhelming and undeniable weight of the DNA evidence, attempted a desperate maneuver to discredit it. They argued for potential contamination, for the inherent unreliability of older samples, for the perceived novelty of genetic genealogy. They tried with increasing desperation to paint a picture of a flawed, unproven process, attempting to sow just enough seeds of doubt into the minds of the jury. But their arguments withered and crumbled under the precise, unyielding weight of the scientific precision presented by the prosecution. Every challenge was met with an unassailable factual response. Every attempted doubt systematically dismantled with expert testimony. The cumulative effect was devastatingly conclusive. The courtroom drama, often fraught with tension and uncertainty, now felt undeniably inevitable. The path to justice, after 2 decades of agonizing waiting, was finally irrevocably clear. The air in the courtroom, taut with anticipation, seemed to hum with the collective suspended breath of all gathered. After days of intense deliberation, a period fraught with anxious waiting for the Jenkins family and a profound undercurrent of uncertainty for the wider community, the jury finally returned. A hush fell over the room, so absolute that the soft creak of the door as the jurors filed in sounded like a percussive shock. Each face remained unreadable, offering no premature hint of the decision they carried. The foreman stood clutching the sealed verdict form, and the clerk's voice, though clear and steady, seemed to echo in the sudden, vast silence. In the case of the state versus Arthur Finch on the charge of the murder of Sarah Jenkins, we, the jury, find the defendant a deliberate, agonizing pause stretched the moment guilty on all counts. A collective gasp, sharp and visceral, tore through the courtroom, immediately succeeded by a profound wave of sweeping, unburdening relief. There was a palpable shift in the atmosphere, as if a suffocating, decades-long weight had suddenly been lifted. For Sarah's family seated in the front row, the word guilty resonated with the force of a liberating explosion. Emily Jenkins, who had maintained her composure with fierce determination throughout the grueling trial, now openly wept, her shoulders shaking. Tears of sorrow born from the indelible loss of her sister, finally mingled with those of profound, hard-won triumph, a release of pain held captive for 20 years. Her father reached over his hand, trembling as he gripped hers, tears silently tracking down his own weathered face. Their quiet shared sobs were a raw symphony of long-denied grief, finally finding permission to flow freely. Arthur Finch, however, remained an unnerving stark contrast. As the verdict was read, his features remained utterly impassive, a stony mask of defiance settling over his face. Not a flicker of remorse, not a hint of reaction registered in his cold eyes. He sat motionless, a figure devoid of discernible human emotion, seemingly disconnected from the emotional maelstrom that swirled around him. The carefully constructed facade he had worn for so long, that of the unremarkable citizen, had simply hardened into one of cold, unyielding denial, even in the face of absolute defeat. The pronouncement of sentence followed swiftly, a final somber act. Given the profound gravity of the crime and the overwhelming conclusive evidence, the judge delivered the maximum penalty allowed by law. Arthur Finch was sentenced to life imprisonment, without the possibility of parole. The judge's words were final, absolute, irrevocably sealing his fate. The gavel's sharp, decisive rap echoed through the courtroom, a sound that signaled the definitive, resounding close of a 2-decade-long chapter of anguish and uncertainty. For Emily and her family, it was the finality they had so desperately sought. The legal process, though slow and arduous, had at last reached its inevitable conclusion. Justice delayed for so long had undeniably been delivered. The perpetrator of Sarah's murder would never again walk free, a truth that brought a fragile yet profound sense of peace to a family scarred by endless, agonizing waiting. The profound resolution of Sarah Jenkins' case rippled outward, finally bringing a fragile yet undeniable measure of peace to the quiet town of Cedar Creek. More deeply still, it offered a long-denied solace to her family, who had carried the crushing weight of uncertainty for 2 decades. For Emily, the guilty verdict was not an abrupt cessation of her grief. That wound was too deep, too fundamental to ever truly vanish. Instead, it felt like the lifting of an unbearable, suffocating burden that had pressed down on her spirit for 20 relentless years. The phantom of the unknown, the haunting specter of a free killer, finally dissolved, replaced by the definitive reality of justice served. In the aftermath, Emily Jenkins, channeling her enduring love and the lingering ache of her sister's absence, discovered a new compelling purpose. The arduous journey through Sarah's cold case had starkly illuminated the desperate need of other families trapped in similar, timeless grief. She dedicated her life to advocating fiercely for these cold cases, becoming a passionate, articulate proponent of forensic genetic genealogy. Sarah's memory, once a source of paralyzing sorrow, now fueled Emily's unwavering resolve. She spoke at national conferences, consulted with law enforcement agencies, and offered compassionate solace to other grieving relatives, her voice resonating with hard-won experience and an empathetic understanding only true suffering can forge. To amplify her efforts, she established the Sarah's Hope Foundation, an organization dedicated to raising crucial awareness and funds for the widespread application of advanced DNA technologies in unsolved homicides, striving to ensure that other families might ultimately find the answers her search had finally received. The singular success of DNA on a stamp transcended the confines of Cedar Creek. It became a landmark case, a powerful emblem of what was now demonstrably possible. News of Arthur Finch's conviction, secured by a microscopic trace of saliva from a 2-decade-old stamp, reverberated throughout the national law enforcement community. It directly inspired cold case units across the country to revisit their own seemingly insurmountable files, to meticulously pull out dusty evidence from forgotten shelves, and to reevaluate what was once categorically considered unanalyzable. The case demonstrated with undeniable clarity the extraordinary power of a tiny overlooked clue, a discarded piece of paper, a single drop of biological evidence when amplified by human perseverance and scientific ingenuity. It fundamentally transformed how law enforcement approached cases that had long stumped them, validating the relentless dedication of detectives like Mark Evans and the visionary, painstaking work of scientists like Dr. Eris Thorne and Lena Petrova. Sarah Jenkins, though tragically lost too soon, unexpectedly left behind an enduring legacy. Her case became a catalyst for profound change, a poignant reminder that while the relentless march of time may blur memories, it cannot ultimately erase truth. The relentless pursuit of justice, often a long and arduous path, paved with despair and frustration, proved that even the faintest whisper from the distant past, once amplified by scientific breakthroughs and unwavering human commitment, possesses the power to pierce through decades of silence and, finally, bring accountability. Her story now stands as a powerful testament to the enduring themes of justice, perseverance, and the remarkable, ever-evolving power of forensic science in the unwavering pursuit of truth. For families still waiting, still hoping, Sarah's case offers a beacon that no crime is ever truly unsolvable, and no life, however cruelly taken, is ever forgotten. In the unwavering pursuit of justice, no truth is ever truly lost to time. If you're compelled by how a microscopic clue can finally unravel decades of silence and deliver long-awaited justice, subscribe to Shadow Files for more compelling true crime investigations. Don't forget to subscribe to Shadow Files and hit the notification bell.